While we were heading from point A to point B while we were on vacation, we realized that we could cut through Gettysburg and kind of experience all of that. Plus, it ended up being Memorial Day weekend. My husband has a military background. We had the whole day to kill. It all just kind of worked out perfectly that this is what we did to spend our day.
A fever pitch. When Northerner Abraham Lincoln was elected president, Southern states were terrified he would abolish slavery.
So we ended up finding a self guided driving tour on TripAdvisor. I was very skeptical, not gonna lie. My husband was all gung ho for it. I'm like, well, I've never ordered anything off of TripAdvisor. I 100,000% recommend the company and the gentleman that we used for this. It's the very first photo that I start this tour with. He has set it up that it follows a map throughout the entire tour. So as you follow along and drive the way that he is directing you, he will tell you what happened in that area, certain places that you can stop and walk around. And he also has side tours that you can take, walking tours from where you are. And then when you get back in the car, as your car starts going towards the map again, it'll hit another little landmark and he'll begin speaking about what you're driving through and driving past. So this is not even close to the amount of photos that I took. Also, I thought when I started this that I would be able to take a picture of every single monument. Not even close. I am Canadian, so I know in general the Battle of Gettysburg, but I certainly did not know the extent of it. And the gentleman that puts on this tour covered so much more information that I could even try to give you during this few minutes. But there were certain things that he went over that I definitely didn't realize, and it's all brand new to me, and I feel like you're never too old to learn. So when you're going to see those wooden fences, obviously there's no nails or anything in those. They're just kind of slatted in. The reason those were used was A, kind of for protection, but B, it also slowed down the enemy because they would have to either take them down or kind of, jump over them and maneuver around them and stuff. So it was actually just a somewhat quick way of slowing down the enemy. It was coming in their direction. This one here, this little puppy, there we go. So Sally was actually part of that group, and she went on to do other battles as well, and people have left little dog treats for her. But I wouldn't have even known there was a dog on the other side of the monument if it wasn't for the gentleman that we were listening to, because I was wondering why people were looking on the other side. So he goes through specific monuments, but you absolutely see other ones as you drive along. He goes into the amount of people that lost their lives during this time period, and I apologize. I do not remember the numbers confidently enough to give them to you, but they are in the tour. He takes us on a bit of a side detour at one point to explain that because of back then, the amount of knowledge and medical experiences that were during that time, a lot of people actually, if you were shot in the arm and they just didn't really, they couldn't clean it properly and do wound care properly, you would lose your limb. And so I didn't really, until he kind of explained that, I didn't realize that so many people became amputees simply because of the lack of knowledge and medical experience. And maybe I'm naive with that because of the time period, but that was actually really shocking to me that, something that this day, you could be shot in the arm and you're fine. I mean, you're in pain and it's horrible, but you're certainly not losing it. And so that was just really eye-opening to the amount of damage that was done to people's bodies, that unfortunately didn't need to be. And so that was a really big blow for me to kind of grasp. Anyway, so as we continue through, we actually did get out at Little Round Top. So here we are. This is one of the major battle sites between July 1st and 3rd. And as you go through the tour, the gentleman explains what's happening on each day. So this, you can see, really does look down on the valley, but you can see across, there's another kind of mountainous ridge on the other side, and we do end up looping around to that. Now, when you look down in the valley, there's water that's running down there. It's not a lot, but it's definitely a stream. And we're going to get some better pictures of it later. But because of the fighting with the Confederates on one side and the Union at Little Round Top, what was happening, honestly.
At the next intersection, we're going to turn left onto Wheatfield Road. Sprint across this valley and try to scale the hill on the opposite side. But Union Brigadier General Samuel Crawford is ready for them. There's too much open ground, and the hill is much too steep. Union men defeat hundreds of Confederate soldiers trying to cross the valley. As twilight approaches, Crawford orders his men to charge down the hill into the valley to make quick work of the remaining Confederate soldiers.
There we go. I'll have him do his thing. But because of all the fighting, there we go. The waters ran red with blood for several hours because of the fighting in between both hills. Both sides, had a good vantage point and kind of went for it. So that's known as Death Valley, which I didn't know until this. But that is where Death Valley is. So as we continue on our tour, see, as you can see, there are so many, I really didn't know so many, but I'm going to say groups, and I know that's the wrong word, but so many battalions and whatever were involved in this. So you're going to see, I took some photos of some other tours that were happening. So that was like a bus tour. Every so often you're going to see these little cars. That was an adorable tour. Side note, see that hole? And so it goes right through. Neither side would take responsibility for who shot a cannonball through that house, so they didn't want to have to pay for it. So nobody really knows to this day who actually caused that damage. But if you happen to be flying into the area or whatever and you don't have access to a car, I did take a couple pictures of tours that we saw along the way, which means they would be covering very similar topics and knowledge that we covered as well. I gotta tell you though, those little cars look super cute. We had our own vehicle, and I'm very happy with our self-guided tour that we took. But if we happen to not have a car, I think I would want to be in those little buggy mobile things. So this Spangler's Spring is, it's completely dried up now, but it's where soldiers used to be able to come and get fresh water when they were in the area, and it played a large part in literally keeping everybody hydrated that was in that area. So as it says, it has kind of a small replica of it there, but it did so much more than it looks like. It was really necessary. All right, we are getting to the end of our tour. I completely, highly recommend you go to the beginning, grab the snapshot of the company that we used, and take a self-guided tour. It was incredible. It took us 3 hours.